Hi, I'm John Oliver, Editor-in-Chief of Solaris, and we're sat here today with Geoffrey Gudgion, author of Saxon's Bane. So Jeff, tell us a little bit of what the book's about.
It's a blend of modern archaeology and an old Saxon legend, so it's the past creeping into the present in a fairly spooky sort of way.
Did you do a lot of research on Saxons and the general history of the area and when you were creating Allingly?
Yeah, lots of research, both into Saxon legends and the rune culture, the rune aspect of Saxon history. I discovered this legend of a Saxon warrior called Egil, who was brother to a well-known Saxon hero called Wayland the Smith. And he was married to, Egil was married to a lady called Olrun, who was a swan maiden, a shapeshifter in Saxon legend. And I had this idea of bringing this old legend into the present day through a village called Allingly, which in Anglo-Saxon would have been Egil Ingasle, the clearing of the folk of Egil.
Mm. I think one thing that struck me about the novel when I first read it was you have a wonderful sense of place in the English countryside. The English countryside is as much a character and a feature as any of the living, breathing human beings, and the ghosts, obviously, that we have in the novel. Yeah. There were parts that reminded me of Alan Garner, Robert Holdstock.
I'm very honoured.
Both authors I think you've read since.
Yes. Alan Garner is a superb writer, and he has also a way of blending past and present and leading you into the suggestion of ambiguous interpretations of a situation, and very atmospheric writer. Yeah, I respect Alan Garner a lot. And so does Rob Holdstock. He paints the English countryside beautifully, or paints pictures, word pictures of the English countryside. So yeah.
And you have a depth of history in the landscape as well. The landscape reflects the history, especially in Allingly, which has got the peat bog.
Yes, I had a geography teacher at university who was could inspire us with the changing nature of the English landscape, and he taught me about how you can trace the Saxon migration, for example, from place names, which is hence the name Allingly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Egil Ingasle. Is
there a real life analogy for Allingly? Is there one particular place in England that is the inspiration?
I had in mind the South Downs because that first wave of Saxon migration would have stayed quite close to the coast. I had it needed to have somewhere which had a stream through it, running through it, which I called the Swanbourne, and obviously it needed to be relatively undisturbed, so that it would need to be a bit of a backwater. And within those basic constraints, I created a completely fictional place. But in my mind's eye, it's somewhere in the South Downs, quite close to the sea.
Well, there's a long history of creating real fictional places in the novels that are about the English countryside meeting the fantastic. Holdstock did it with Ryehope, and you're a first-time novelist. This is your first novel. Yep. Tell us a little bit about how that process has been.
It's the first one to get published. There were a few failures that came first. And it's been a long haul. I was a corporate citizen up until about 6 years ago and had this spectacular row with my boss and sort of said, that's it, I'm not going to be an employee anymore. Went freelance, and because what I'd always wanted to do was write. It's something that I'd never had the courage to do until I parted company with this organisation and said, right, I'm going to be a freelance and I'm going to free up time for writing. And it'll be 6 years from making that decision to getting into print. So it's been a long haul, a few setbacks along the way, but oh boy, it feels good. It beats working.
Absolutely. And horses play a great part in this, and the horses as healing is particularly prevalent throughout the novel.
Yes. I ride myself, and I think horses have a wonderful ability to heal. I've seen the transformational effect they can have, for example, on people who come from riding for the disabled, for example, and also sometimes with autistic children. That there's an amazing empathetic quality of that horses can have with damaged people. And so that there was one of the characters I had, as you know, is in serious need of healing. and that was a natural blend to put that character together with horses.
Absolutely. And are the horses, are their characters based on real horses you know?
Yeah, well, there's a horse that I ride a couple of times a week, and he's a great friend, and that intuition, that bond that Fergus in the book develops with the horse is something that, yeah, I'm drawing on personal experience there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On a blog recently you described yourself as an accidental fantasist. And Saxon's Bane has elements of the fantastical in them. Did it always have elements of the fantastical?
Yes.
Was the supernatural always a part of it?
It was always a part of it. And when I first started writing, I didn't know anything about genre. I just wanted to write a book. I didn't understand the boxes into which the industry puts people who write books. And I didn't set out to create a new world or anything like that. I set out to write about the existing world and just twist the rules a bit. And so having done that, I found I'm in the fantasy market. I'm very pleased to be here, but it does mean I'm here by accident rather than by design.
And one thing you talk about in the novel is old religion versus new religion. Not versus, you actually managed to blend them very well. You have both sympathetic Wiccan characters and both sympathetic Christian characters.
Yes.
I mean, the vicar character in the novel in particular is a very strong and forthright and passionate character without being a dictatorial character.
I think the faiths can coexist, and of course the early Christian church supplanted an awful lot of the pagan faiths that were there. I mean, as I said in the book, Easter is based on the name Easter comes from the old Germanic goddess Eostre, who was the goddess of the spring in old pagan culture. So the church took over the festival and called it Easter and said it was now the festival of Christ's resurrection. So the faiths have always touched, interacted through history, not always happily, but they do coexist in the book. I think reasonably well.
I think so, and I think you tie the faith, the spirituality of the characters again to the land very much, especially when we're talking about old faiths, but also the church itself and the established church is still very much linked to the English countryside and Englishness without being nationalistic.
Exactly, and it's all part of rural traditions that go back so far that sometimes it's difficult to unpick what is faith-based and what is pagan-based, and what comes from a pagan origin, and what is just a rural tradition, something people have been doing for centuries. And that ambiguity, I think, is quite fun, of finding the blend of ways of life.
And the main character, Fergus, he's a man who comes from the corporate world, it feels to me, and he then has this transformative experience on the edge of Allingly where he goes off the road in his car and is pretty much left for dead, and while he is on the verge of death, sees the vision of the Saxon.
Yes.
And that, I think you balance the world, it's a spiritual realisation for Fergus. Did it feel like that when you were writing, that it is he discovers in a way what's important in life? Yes.
I think he inevitably, when you have a near-death experience, you start challenging what matters. And with Fergus, I wanted to create a character who's A, challenging his own value system, and B, doesn't know whether what he's seen at the edge of death was real or a product of his own trauma. So he's got that uncertainty, and like a lot of people coming out of trauma, he's a bit emotionally incontinent, he's a bit vulnerable, he's bloody stubborn. He just won't let it go, he just keeps on going. I like that idea of a character who's emerging from trauma and is on his own journey towards healing as the main character. And so that when things go really tough, he tends to fight back. Not always because he's any particular hero, it's just because he's too bloody minded to go the other way.
Sure, and I think the healing comes through Allingly itself as much as through Clare, the character he meets there. The two are very, very intertwined.
Well, Clare also is going through her own trauma, because the way in which I introduce the supernatural is through flashbacks. I mean, she's excavating a peat-preserved body of a Saxon warrior, and the the legend of Egil starts coming back in dream sequences. So she is a professional archaeologist. She seems to have a preternatural understanding. She doesn't know whether she's being given this insight into the bodies that she's excavating, or whether she's going mad. So she's also going through her own trauma. The two of them prop each other up for a bit.
So we also have here, Jeff, a actual Saxon helmet.
Yeah. Well,
not a reproduction helmet, but a reproduction
Saxon helmet.
Based on the artwork.
Courtesy of a friend.
That's right. Based on the artwork of Flint Langley, who did the cover for the book. Tell us a bit how you sourced this, how you got it made.
Well, a friend found the helmet for me, and the antlers are a later addition. But the Saxon in the book has a stag emblem tattooed onto his forehead, and wore a helmet like this. So I thought, if you can have something like this as an artifact to go alongside book signings and to feature in the book launch, what a thing to show and tell. So thanks to a friend, there it sits, and I'm very proud of it.
Thanks very much, Jeff. It's been great to have you here today. And Saxon's Bane, check it out. It's out now, and it's a cracking read.